afternoon, folks. I'm sitting here with Charles the Killer Whittaker. We've been meaning to conduct this interview now for a number of weeks after an incident at the boxing gym at the end of April. And, I think sometimes it's a good idea to put a little space in between situations before you sit down and talk with folks. So we are finally having an opportunity to sit down and have a word with Charles, and we're going to talk about where things are at now and primarily what led up to the incident that Charles ended up going viral for. It's not the kind of thing that you normally want to go viral for, but here we are. And obviously here in Kimmermall Road, we're all about bringing you, the people, the true story, the behind the scenes story, so that you are well abreast of exactly what is going on. So Charles, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, good afternoon.
Good evening, Sandy, and thank you for making time for me.
Yes, absolutely. We've been trying to do this for a minute and just scheduling, but here we finally are. I thought it was important, Charles, for you to be given the opportunity to tell the people your story. So where do we begin? You have been, just a little bit of backstory, you have obviously been involved in boxing for, oh my gosh, most of your adult life, I would say. Started at what age?
33 years.
Right, wow. So we also have heard you speak often about how boxing has been a life and a game changer for you. You know, being under the tutelage of people like Mr. Dalmeen was a positive influence. Having something such as the sport of boxing to really just sort of funnel your energy, your excess energy in and focus on helped you in so many ways. Give us a little brief synopsis, if you will, on how you got started in boxing and how it has been a game changer for you.
Well, I've known since I was 2 years old that I wanted to be a fighter. My father used to box, and it's in my DNA. I was born a fighter, but I started, well, when I was 7 years old, I said a prayer to God, and I said, whatever you have for me to do, help me that when I'm 14, I'll gravitate to that as opposed to other things. Mm-hmm. Now, I was a natural born gymnast. The things that I could do without ever took in a gymnastics class was amazing. I could do some things. But wow. when 14 came around, I gravitated to my boxing much more. And, it had always been in my head, but I prayed about it. And on Wednesday, June the 15th, 1988, my cousin John Evans took me to the West Bay Town Hall, and I stood at the door, mm-hmm. and I was afraid to go inside, because growing up in Cayman, I had a different experience, Mm-hmm. I can remember Sunday as a little boy, 5, 6, 7 years old, often being cursed and called, "You little black bastard, you little black son of a bitch, you never gonna be anybody." Yep. I can remember this. I can remember being called Monkey Charles and Beulah Bastard. Hell, I remember I had my mother's last name, Ebanks. Mm-hmm. And there used to be a passport office or place to go take pictures of passports. Oh, where Comart used to be. I remember that. There used to be a building. So we went out there and took the pictures. And I remember my little sister Georgia was excited because we was all gonna have the same last name. I went to change my last name from Ebanks to Whittaker. Okay. And I remember when they gave me the form and it says, write your name here, write Whittaker. I paused because I was confused as to what my last name was. I thought my last name was Beulah Bastard. And just as I was about to say to them, because they're saying write Whittaker, but I was confused. Mm-hmm. And just as I was about to say to them, but I thought my last name was Beulah, but my little sister hit me in the leg and said, boy, write your name now.
How old would you have been at that time, you think?
7, 8.
Wow.
I don't think I was any older than that. And my little sister hit me in the leg and said, boy, write your name now. And so I wrote my name. Yeah. But we fast forward from that to boxing. Yeah. Boxing's done so much for me. Right. And the legacy of Dalmeen Ebanks means so much to me. It's for other people, it's a building, it's a gym. For me, it's a legacy. a legacy that benefited me greatly, a legacy that gave me brothers, other brothers, you know, that made me a part of a fraternity. You know, there are the people who today are still a part of my life because of the boxing program with Mr. Dalmeen, and the love and the care and the concern that he put into us. We, the fighters, was number one. He made us number one. And, you know, boxing has changed my life, you know. Gave me an opportunity to travel and to do things, to know people. And, you know, like I said, for some people it's just a building. For me, and for those who were a part and those who knew Dalmeen Ebanks and what he stood for, knows that it's so much more.
Right.
And to see what was taking place and to understand and to have even learned even more since this incident. Well, you know, I was troubled. I had been troubled for quite some time. I just been saying it when I go to the gym. You know, what's happening here is not right. You know, these people are using this facility for their own financial gain, for their own benefit. And I've been complaining about it.
Let's break some of that down, right? So I think it's important for people to understand where you're coming from a historical perspective in terms of the gym, your relationship with Mr. Dalmeen Ebanks, and let's talk now about the gym itself, the physical, as you say, what people will see as a physical building. How did that gym come about? Do you remember? What was the history behind the building of the gym? When did it get started? And how was Mr. Dalmeen and yourself involved in that?
Well, let's even go back to the West Bay Town Hall.
Right.
Mr. Dalmeen was a politician.
Yes.
After the 1988 election, the government kicked us out of the town hall and said, at the end of this year, we're going to turn it into a library. 20 years later, Alden McLaughlin turned it into a library. 20 years later.
Wow.
We then moved. Mr. Dalmeen was renting a building, a garage up by Red Gate. One of those warehouse buildings, turned it into the gym. Then they raised the rent on us and we had to get out. We didn't have a gym.
Right.
So I remember I didn't remember this. Someone reminded me the other day because he said to me, I made a call to the Minister of Sports and told him he needed to rectify this because that's your gym. And nobody should have the right to lock you out. He said to me, Charles, I remember when we were children. You had a piece of paper when we didn't have, when there was no gym, going around saying you were going to start begging people for money so we could build a gym, so you could build a gym. I didn't remember that. Someone reminded me.
Yeah. And someone, just to speak on that, I didn't know that story, but someone else said to me that they had spent some time with you as a young man. I'm assuming probably when you first got started in boxing, then that you used to walk around with this book by Muhammad Ali, I think, and you would actually sleep with this book underneath your pillow at night.
Oh yeah, I had my room full of pictures of champions and boxers, and you know, the whole room, the whole ceiling, the whole room was covered with pictures of Mike Tyson, who's my hero, and you know, Muhammad Ali and all these guys.
Yeah.
And
what was? Do you remember the name of the book? Because I think there's some significance.
I don't.
Yeah, but it was a story about, I think, Muhammad Ali's life, and it might have been an autobiography, in fact, but it had so many quotes in there, is what I'm told, for the person who was sharing this story. I can't remember now who told me a couple weeks ago, but it had so many quotes in there about perseverance and you know, just doing the right thing, staying on the right side of things. And they said that, you know, they were telling me the story to make the point that boxing and what it has to offer isn't just a recreational sport for Charles. Charles ate, slept, breathed, everything boxing.
Absolutely, you know, and you know, that's the whole thing. I mean, as I was telling you, that once Mr. Dalmeen couldn't afford the rent anymore because he was paying the rent from his own pocket. You know, why does legacy mean so much to me, Mr. Dalmeen? I remember Miss Esther would tell me that some weeks he would give less money to her to buy food at home.
Wow.
And she would say to him, Dad, you gave me less. She said, yeah, but baby, I got my other boys too, you know. And I gotta make sure they have. And I have this one just came to me named Charlie. He's different. He's different than the rest. There's something different about him. But we didn't have a gym for about 3 months. Then Mr. Dalmin had told me that there used to be a gym, a building behind the library. The government used to have a trade shop. And it was a woodwork shop. And Mr. Dalmin said that they had told him they would give us the building. But after waiting about 3 months, nobody, I said, that's it. I got enough for this waiting. I need a gym. I went up there. At the time, there used to be a big dumpster behind the library. It was a Wednesday. I went in there with another box at the time named Noel Thomas. He's Jamaican, but he represented Cayman. He used to live here. He was one of our boxers. And me and him went in there. And I took all those machines, big chisels, saws, hammers, table saws, electrical table saws. I threw every single thing in the garbage dumpster. Everything. I didn't care what it was. I needed a gym. That's how we got that gym behind the library. Then that's how we got that gym behind the library. Then we cleaned it up. We got it clean. Then I went and I showed Didi. Didi said, Saturday, everybody here, me, Michael Peart, Noel Thomas, all of us went down there. We cleaned it up. And that's how we got that gym. Hurricane Ivan came, took it down. Then they had this little seafarers building where building next door to it, that they allowed the gym then to transfer to there. But by this time, so I was mostly residing overseas. But I would come and I trained. That gym ended up getting a ring in it too, because I actually paid for it, had one built myself, helped build it. And just again about my commitment. The gym didn't even have. I remember a time we didn't even have water running to it. One time I came in, and me and one of the other boxers, Ian Osborne, ran a pipe and fixed the thing back so we could have water back in the gym. You know, my commitment goes way back. You know,
and that is why. Let me just pause you there. I could see. Even when I was listening to the incident and watching the video, and I went through and I analyzed it on the Cold Hard Truth in great detail, actually. And I know one of the points that was made by Ms. Tracy Seymour that had to have been beyond insulting in that moment and beyond was when she said she's never seen you pick up a broom around here. And this is when people don't even know their own history, how incredibly hurtful their words can be. Number one, because it's completely inaccurate. And number two, you were talking about laying pipes and plumbing and moving heavy equipment just to have an area to work in. How does that even compare to a broom or a mop? It's like, it shows a level of misinformation and I guess just ignorance, not trying to insult her, but if she doesn't know, she doesn't know. But sometimes you shouldn't speak when you're not in a position to actually know what is going on.
And so once that building, the gym that we now have wouldn't have been built without me. It wouldn't have been built. There was no justification to continue the program, to spend that kind of money. But you came out, had a champion in the world and a top contender and someone who was known. So, and I was promoting fights here. And I was promoting fights here. No fight that I ever promoted here was ever financially successful. Not one. Okay, not one. But I helped other young Caymanians fight make their professional debut. I helped other people from overseas. That's what it was about. It was about influencing how I could.
Right. Now tell us a little bit about your professional record charts. What belt did you, what title did you actually hold?
Well, let me just finish this before I say that. When it comes to the gym, it was just a few weeks ago, the week after the incident, Alden McLaughlin came down to the Prodigy to pick up his ring. He was there, I was there, when we had this, and he and I were talking, we were all talking about that. He can recall. I would go up to his ministry and argue with them and tell them off. And when they would say, "We're gonna build a gym," I say, "Stop lying. You all ain't building no gym." I never stopped. He just got tired of me constantly bombarding him about that gym. No matter how much he told me, "Charles, we're building it. Go up there and look, it's being built." I said, "Yeah, by the time it's done, I'm gonna give it to something else." It was me. He would just want to hear the end of that story. You know? As opposed to titles, I've won 8 in my career. 8. I've won 8. Yeah, 8. I've fought for, I think, 11 or 12, but I won 8.
So your ability to bring a certain level of recognition to the profession of boxing in the Cayman Islands, you say was instrumental for even having the government consider building a physical building.
Absolutely. There was no justification for government to spend 1.6 or $0.9 million on that, on whatever it was, that, or $1.4 million that was spent on that facility. When you hear people like, you know, Tracy Seymour jump up about, "Never seen you pick up a mop," you know, and it's not that Tracy doesn't know. Tracy is, Tracy, when the program, let me tell you, when I was the vice president of the association, there are young men out here today that you could interview and could tell you that because of my influence, I had Darrell tell me a few weeks ago, he said, "Charles, you know, I didn't realize when you, Norman was my coach. I brought him here. I didn't just bring him here. I took the money from my pocket, flew him here from the Philippines, from the United States. And when he was getting to run around from the then sports minister, who was Mrs. Scott, we getting to run around, he was about to leave. I went to the bank, took $5,000 at the bank and said, "No, Norm, you stay here." I went and met with Mr. Adams, Mike Adams. I met with Klein Glenn. I told CG, "You let Mark know." Mark told me what Mark and Mr. Adams told me what to do. "Don't worry about it, Charles." I'll never forget Mr. Adams said, "Charles, we have lost one too many young Caymanians. I want to limit that on my watch." And that's how I fought. When Norman was here in that program we were running, we had for the first time ever amateur boxers ranked in the world. Amateur boxers going all over the place, fighting and winning. For the first time ever, we had a structure, we had a program. I was taking money from my own pocket, buying equipment. Some kids needed clothes, things I did. There are young men around here today, like you saw Kendall, you might have seen Kendall's story on Facebook where he said he now owns his own business because I told all of them, all of you are not going to be fighters, but what you learn here, you could take from this and maybe start your own business. You might discover I could be a trainer. You might discover I could be a promoter, I could be a manager, but there's always something to get from this. The goal, you see, I learned from a conversation I had with Dalmini Banks. It was he and I alone in 1995 in the gym one Friday night. And I said to him, "Mr. Dalmini, so you know, D, this country has never given you the recognition you deserve for your years of contribution. I remember people used to criticize me, "Charles, you can't be a professional fighter. You could be just like Dalmine in Standard 1 for 4 to 5 years. I remember this. Oh yeah, I remember this. And he laughed. He said, "Charlie, let me tell you something. My goal, that don't mean nothing to me, Charlie. I get my satisfaction from you, Bobby, Ernest, John, Foster, Dave, and all the other guys." He said, "That's what gets my satisfaction from." He said, "My goal is not to build fighters." He said, "Those of you that are going to be fighters, God has already made them." He said, "When you came to me that first night, I didn't have to make you a fighter. You came to me a fighter. I knew you were different. I knew you was a fighter. Those who are going to be fighters, God has already made them so. But my goal is to build better citizens today for a brighter and better Cayman tomorrow." That's what Norman and I had going. And when Tommy Banks is the president of the Boxing Association, what we had going there, that's not what's going there now. If you can't pay the $30 a month, It's a government program. If they want the people that come in, do the exercise classes, they could pay and make money for themselves. The program is supposed to be about our children. Listen, one of the young men work up there, Sabian, him and his father went to that gym during the pandemic one day. And they went there just to get some weights. They were going to go home and work because everybody's home. He runs in to one of these, you know, people that have taken it over now. This English girl one of them who have taken it over as her place, as their place. And he says hello to her. Rather than saying hello, she says to him, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here? You need to get out of here right now." Mind you, he works at the gym. She knows who he is, but she speaks. This is how. And his father said she didn't see his father, so his father let her have it. And his father, he said to his father, "That's how they talk to us as Caymanians." That's what, and that's the problem. People think that my fight was not with Tracy. Tracy knows full well. When you say Tracy didn't know, Tracy, I used to help to train Tracy. Tracy was one of the beneficiaries, but I heard a young man say the other day, when the other fellow said, "Charles, do you know how long Tracy didn't like you, talk bad about you, from the time the boxing gym was behind the library?" Now, I heard of Tracy. I never once met her until 2010 when she came around this gym. But he said from then she used to talk bad about you. I didn't know who she is. Tracy has a problem. She don't like black people. That's okay? Every one of us knows that she don't like black people. Amazingly. Okay? But this program is supposed to be about building young men and helping young men become better citizens. And that's not what's happening. If you can't pay, they try to throw the coach on the bus. They got rid of the coach. They brought the money from Trinidad. They got rid of him. And this is what they said. I understand they're claiming that they got rid of him because he was doing personal training. Well, that's a deal that they made with him, that he could do that to subsidize his pay. So what happened to the pay? Because the government was giving the money to pay the coach. So where'd that money go? And that's the problem. They didn't like the fact that I'm talking about it. And they don't want me around. They run away all the other Kendall, Daryl, they keep away all the other young Caymanians. That's what they don't. Listen, these people come here, they want us out of the way. Okay, they're not in our country. We're in their country. These people come in, they want us out the way. And that's the problem. They kill the program and kill what it's about and have it about what they want it about. There are people down there running their own private business out of that facility. And that's what I have a problem with. And people might say that they're upset that I broke the glass. I broke the glass. Doggone right I did. I'm tired of the system of prejudice and hate that exists in this country towards those of us that were born here. And people come in. There's always the Tracy Seymours who they hide behind. That's the problem. We have too many like her here who get out front. Lots of women, and I've had at least 40 women who have said to me, "Sandra, child, you should have did this to her." I've always tried to be civil with her because I know there's something obviously mentally wrong with her. When you're black as she is and you don't like black people.
That doesn't make any sense, yeah.
Right? But here's the thing. I have a problem with what's going on, and so why didn't it, the things about it, the comment that was made, I commented on what Daryl wrote. Daryl wrote, "There's too much corruption going on in the Boxing Association. Somebody needs to do something." And I responded to it.
Right. It was strange because we didn't learn that until we started discussing it on the program, because the implication was when she approached you, it was that you had posted it.
Oh no.
And I was a bit surprised to see that your post that got her all upset was just a comment on something that Daryl had posted. So my question became, well, why didn't she approach Daryl then? No, since he was the one who posted it.
Exactly, because they know that they can just run Daryl out of there and he would just leave. All the other Caymanians, Kendall, listen, Michael Peart was on the board and he told me they removed him. Now, this is, like, he's a police officer and he was in the boxing gym the night of Wednesday, June 15th. 1988, when I walked in there, I could still see him right now jumping rope. I could tell you what he was wearing. I still could see him. He's here in Cayman today because Mr. Dalmin, he has told me, "Charles, the legacy of Mr. Dalmine deserves better. We know that Mr. Dalmine didn't take from that program, he added to it. And these people are tearing it down. I have gone down there before, and I've had to say to Sabian one time, this music that is being played up inside is not appropriate. You have to remember, son, this is a legacy. Now, he's a nice kid, and to his credit, I never heard it again, but I heard it for quite some time before, and I had been saying something, and I told him, but I haven't heard it again after that. But the profanity, the music, these people have no respect for the facility. They have no respect for Cayman and Caymanians. And they come here and they're just simply trying to push us all out the way. And so I know they don't like me. And I no longer know Tracy didn't like me, but I try to be civil with Tracy because, like I said, something wrong with her. Something wrong with her. And she's doing their dirty work. They're standing behind her. That video you saw that Monday, I didn't even know that conversation was being recorded. You would think that we had an argument. Let me tell you Monday before that Tuesday. I went to the gym, wrapped my hands, got ready, shot a box, and you tie my gloves. I went outside and I said to Sabian, can tie my gloves? And Sabian said, I don't know how to tie. I said, you could tie the glove, man. So I think his name is Regilio. I call him Regilio. It might not be right name, but Regilio tied the right hand, Sabian tied the left hand. Tracy was standing right there. I said, hey, Tracy. She was saying something to somebody, but I said, hi, Tracy. Hi, Charles. That was it. That was it until she walked outside. But before she walked outside, she stood there in the gym and she said, you know what, I'm going to get him out of here. I'm going to get him arrested. You see, that's why when I was there that day, when I was in the gym, I heard her mumbling and going on about, because somebody must have sent her the post, but she was there mumbling. I saw her and Layla talking back and forth. That's why Layla was right there. When Layla ran outside and went to the left and stood up outside, Layla Jackson, she's the president of the association. She's the one who is behind all this. They are the people who are behind this. These English people come here and they're trying to take it over as their program and trying to push us out. Look, say what you want, people. Look at Peter Lewison, another young man that I helped to make his professional debut. No matter what anyone said about Peter, he's not a horrible person. He makes some mistakes. We all do. None of us are perfect. He had a romantic relationship with her, and she's had it in for him ever since. She's literally had him kicked out the gym, called the police on him. Okay? When the police officer showed up, police inspector showed up and said, well, how are you a foreigner come here and won't kick the Cayman out of the gym? I'm going to sit here till he trained. She went and got, and Peter told me she went and got Colin Anglin, and Colin Anglin told the police to kick him out of the gym. And these are the kinds of things that Caymanians do to other Caymanians when the complexion of the person asking for it to be done is white. This is the kind of things we do to our own for these people that come here.
So do you know who comprises the current board of the Boxing Association, and at what point did they take over the management of the gym?
I don't really know. Like on this, and I want to address also this long elaborate letter that the association put out that they met with me. I want them to show the minutes of this meeting that they met with me. I want them to show the minutes of the meeting. I want them to show who was in the meeting, when did the meeting take place, and there must have been other people there. Right. And if I behaved in any way as they say, there must be some of the kids who were there, who could attest to this. Coach Floyd was always there when I was there. Now there was an incident where a guy came from Barbados, I think it is, and there was a guy in the middle of the ring putting on something, and it's a big enough ring. I was moving down the ring, and the guy started yelling, somebody get this man out the ring, somebody get this man out the ring. And so I didn't take very kindly to that, and I told him, I don't give an F which one of y'all like me. See all them doors, y'all can use one of them doors. When you hear, I'm not in your way, you in mine, so if you can't work around me, leave. You know? But I know that response that he got was as a result of, and that girl wasn't there at the time, Tracy, but I know as a result, she wasn't involved with the association at the time, but I know as a result that of things that the association members were feeding them and trying to build hostility toward me, because this is what these people do. They come here, they try everything. They come here they want Caymanians out the way. And they run, listen, I can get you a slate of the other fighters you could talk to. I met with them. Even Coach Donnie Anglin has told me himself in church that they ran him out of them. He put so much pressure on him for his job because they wanted him out. You saw this thing they put up there about they went searching on a worldwide for a coach. Please, this guy is not a coach. He used to organize women's sparring. Okay, but they always want more of their own because they can continue their system. Okay, Coach Floyd told me that he told them that look, if a kid come in here and he can't pay $30 or $35, you can't run the kid away. You know, they're not trying to build an amateur program. First of all, they're not trying to build an amateur program that lift the spirits. Well, there's so many young men. I get these young men all the time. In fact, one of the kids who took my police report, took a report from me at the police station, said to me, Coach Charles, you used to help me at the gym. You know, every day I get these young men come to me and say, man, I don't ever remember telling these kids like that no more. And they come to me and say, remember, you know, the advice you gave me, and this helped me, this helped. Go ask how many now that this is happening to. They don't have time for Caymanians. Just like they don't want it's like they want a limited amount of Caymanians in corporate Cayman. They want a limited amount of Caymanians everywhere. Everywhere except for the criminal justice system and in jail. Okay? Let me tell you something. Me breaking that glass, Sandra, was about me taking some chops out of a system in this country of prejudice that exists against those of us that were born here. I was angry. You know what I saw? This was no different than when they sit in these offices and they decide that Caymanian girl or boy who comes through the door with that degree, that his or her degree isn't good enough because she don't have enough, or he don't have enough experience. But somehow someone with the right complexion comes here. They're the same age, the same very age, but they possess the necessary experience. Now, how is that possible? How is that possible? You know, and they always use, and don't get me wrong, yes. There are far too many of our own people because they're not doing all they're doing without the help of some of our own people willing to sell our own people down the drain. People are talking about a concern about crime in this country. Continue to do what we're doing. Continue to allow the system to operate the way it's operating in this country, and you're going to see an issue with crime. You're going to see a lot more happen than a broken glass.
So, Charles, you admit that you were angry in that moment, and obviously that is how you responded. But you saw that as a symbolic chipping away of what you say is systematic injustice in this country.
Let me say this.
Yes.
I wasn't angry to the point that people say you lost control. I did.
Yeah.
Did anybody see me attempt to hit Tracy or fight anybody? No.
Right.
No. I know what I was doing. I know what I was doing. If Mr. Dalmini Banks had been here, he wouldn't have been upset I broke the glass. He'd have been upset that anyone tried to keep me out of that gym, and he would have agreed with me. I know the man. I knew the man. I sat, had conversations with the man. I knew him better than many people who knew him longer than I did. So my response, you know what, was righteous indignation. It was no different than when Jesus walked into the temple. No different. And saw that they had turned his father's house into a den of thieves. And he got angry. And he physically drove them out. You know, the Ministry of Sports have said nothing yet. They have said, you saw in the letter that they put out that they spoke to people in the ministry, and they...
Yeah. I'm actually quite shocked that we've not heard from the Ministry of Sports or the minister even.
Yeah, and they have said that they met with people within the ministry, and these people agreed with them that I should be barred from the gym. Well, no one, whoever these people are that they met with, because when I met with the director that day, when he came over, I asked, "Who are you, bro?" He came, Charles goes, I said, "Who are you, bro?" And I just said, "Who are you, bro?" He said, "Kurt." I said, "Kurt." He said, "Kurt Hyde." I said, "Oh." I said, "Kurt Hyde." He said, "The director." I said, "Oh, nice to meet you, but I never met you before."
Yeah.
Daryl and my friend Ernest Barnes were right there and could hear him tell the police officer numerous times, "I don't know what's going on here. I wasn't aware there was any problems. I'm not aware. I don't know what was going on here." You heard him say that time and time again. Daryl can tell you, I even said to him, "I never met you before, but sorry, I didn't know who you was. You know, I just didn't know who you was." So who are the people that they met with? You know what I mean? Who are these people? And isn't there a process? You would think that here comes the most accomplished athlete in this country's history. The country is 500 plus years old. No Caymanian has ever been as accomplished as me in any sport. And somebody comes to you and say, you want to keep him out of the boxing gym. A boxing gym that he is directly responsible for its erection. And you don't have the respect to say, well, wait a minute, something's amiss here. Let me talk to Charles. So I want to know who they spoke to. It's very important that we know who they spoke to, because they put this out publicly. They put this in, you seen their public statement. We need to know, I want to know who are the people they spoke to. But you see.
And before, let me just clarify something. Before that Monday when Tracy started saying stuff to you and walked around following you with the camera, which you didn't know was being recorded, had the Boxing Association issued you any form of formal warnings about any behavior that they were not pleased with or anything of the sort?
Never. There was never an issue. That's what I'm saying. And they put that out, you know, they put that in writing again, so I want them to show. I dare them to show the minutes of the meeting, to show when this happened, who we met with. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. But there are people behind Tracy. That's why I tell people all the time, you know, people, I told you, I've had at least 40 women say to me, I should have mopped the floor with nobody. That wasn't my.
Yeah.
But I said to them, no, the fight was not with her, it's the system.
Right.
You know, my anger was at the system in this country. This just, because I couldn't help but to think, one, they weren't trying to lock me out, but they were trying to lock her down in many ways. But I also thought that this is the same system in that. So it wasn't just about me and the guy, it's the system in this country that is so pervasive and is becoming bolder and bolder, where things are right. You see people put letters in the paper, basically saying we don't want to hire a Caymanian. I'd rather a Filipino or a Jamaican. That's directly saying I don't want Caymanian. We see, and people are okay with these types of things. No one has a problem with these types of things. It bothers me because I understand that if you enrich me, but impoverish everybody around me, you didn't do me any favors. You have made me a target. You have set me up, and that greatly bothers me. It greatly bothers me that so many of my own people are muffled. So and so many of my people are afraid to speak, and people need to stand up and speak. You know, it's funny how we could watch television, Sandy, and we would cry, and we salute Martin Luther King, and we salute Medgar Evers and Malcolm X and Nelson Mandela, these men for their courage. But our people are afraid to stand up, afraid to speak. Our people, we got to come together as a people. We got to come together as a people and stand for each other. And so that's what I was doing. And then when I found out, like when I met with Daryl and you know a lot of the other fighters, I said, how come you don't come around the gym no more? I saw something they got. Ever since I saw how they ran doing the other day, I didn't go back no more. I saw how they when I go there, they make me feel unwelcome. They don't, because they don't want people around who benefited from a true system, from a true program. When I was, like I told you, when I was the vice president and the coach, Trace was the beneficiary. I was there training. I wanted to fight to me, Charles, Even when you used to be there training her and doing the mitts with her, you'd walk away. When you finish with her, she'd be talking bad about you. I had one of our fighters who now lives in England. He called me and said, Charlie, Tracy's still fighting against you? Bro, she's always hated you, and for what, I don't know. So it's a jealousy thing.
I did have people ask if the two of you ever had any sort of a personal relationship.
No.
Okay.
Nothing. You know? And I've always known it, but I've always tried to be civil because Brother Dick Gregory, God bless his soul, said, before you argue with someone, first see if they understand the argument. I don't have to look to see if she understands the argument. The reality is, as black as she is, she hates black people. I know she don't understand the argument. I'm not going, I try not to. I try not to, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I go to the gym, I know she don't want to talk to me now, Joel, oh, sister smoking, you know, I'll still try to. I know, you know, I know when I go down there that they don't like to see me come in there, but I walk in like I belong because, and I said to these guys, I said, you guys all just walked away. I didn't notice when all this happened, the guys are coming out and telling me what has taken place, why they don't go around. And one of the guys even said to me, well, if I go back there and they tell me that I can't train there no more, I'll just leave. I said, leave. Why not stand there and act like you belong there? I mean, that's the problem. We Caymanians sit back and allow everyone else to get off the plane and come here and act as if they have a God-given right to be here. And those of us that were born here act as if, well, we're just lucky to have the opportunity to see them and say hello. And if we see them come, we must get out of their way.
Interesting. In terms of that day, one of the things that was really quite disturbing to me, Charles, is the fact that when you and her were having this verbal altercation back and forth, there was a teenage girl, I don't know how old she might have been, but she looks relatively young, even if she's 18, 19, even if she's 20. 19. She was getting in between you and Tracy, which I couldn't believe that Tracy, being the big woman that she is, actually allowed that to happen. She should have told that young girl to step out of the way and just had nothing to do with her. But what are your thoughts on when you see a young person like that? First of all, I didn't know what she thought she was going to do. I mean, honestly, I was like, you know, Charles, I mean, he's a boxing champ. If he wanted to knock anybody out, probably one punch would have knocked both of them out. So I didn't know what she was intending to do. But have you reflected on, I mean, this whole situation has put the Boxing Association, yourself, and everybody else in such a negative light. How do we repair this, I guess, is really where I'm going with this question. What do we now do to try to repair this situation?
Well, first of all, let me address about the young lady. I don't know what she was doing, but I don't know what she thought she was doing. Like if I wanted to hit Tracy, she was going to help Tracy. But this is what I'm talking about. This is when an adult. This is part of the makeup of strife making. You know, that's all part of the makeup. And she's supposed to be the gym manager, and this is what she's doing. Before Tracy used to come around, before Tracy started being around the gym, the young lady was there, and I used to talk to her nicely, and you know, we'd say a few words. Ever since when Tracy started coming around, I saw last year Tracy had been around, I noticed that I go into the gym and you know they have this, and this young lady is supposed to be a trainer. She can't fight her way. How? That's like me going to Cayman Airways and saying I'm gonna teach somebody how to be a pilot. How are you gonna teach what you don't know? But how do you repair this? First of all, you have to get the government involved. Right. The government has to get involved. The silence from coming out of the minister, and his ministry
is deafening.
It's deafening, and it's complicity with what's going on. And ironically, Bernie used to be the manager of the boxing for a period of time when Mr. Dalmine was alive. Oh wow. Yes, he used to be. He traveled with us. He traveled with us. How we repair this is you have to put a program. The program has to be geared back towards those who care and want to make a difference, and it must be those who came through before. Because everybody that I know that came through the program, every time we get together, what we talk about is Mr. Dalmine Banks. How we talk about how you know, the bond that he built with us, and how he taught us so much, and how it wasn't just boxing he was teaching. It's how we're able to apply a lot of it to everyday life. Sometimes you want to get frustrated or something, and you remember his nature. You remember his calmness. You know how he just calmly handled things. Look, as I said, this is how we're going to build it back. We're going to build it. We're going to build it back with those who came through before, those that knows what it takes, and those most of all that have a value for Caymanians. Those that have a value for Caymanians. It cannot be built by those who have no value for Caymanians. It can't be built by them. You know, Mr. Dalmeen was a builder. He was a builder of things. He was a contractor, a World War II veteran. He owned he was an entertainer, musician. He sang songs. Everything he did was about Cayman. Everything he did. He dedicated his whole life to making a difference. You know, as I always say, there are some people who will die having never lived. And there are people who will live having never died. Mr. Dalmeen is in the latter, because he spent his life building bridges and helping young men, young boys become men. Mr. Dalmeen was a builder. Mr. Dalmeen measured his GPD, was measured by how many young men he could save. That's how he measured his success, by how many young men. I can remember him driving around West Bay in the evening. I used to run to the gym. I would leave my gym bag on the fence post. Some evenings, nobody else would go to the gym. He'd pass me. I'm running to town to the boxing gym behind the ladder from West Bay, and he'd go down. He'd come up. Only my gym bag was on the fence post. He'd bring back with him. But next gym day, he'd drive down there again, undiscouraged. When they go to missing, you see him in the middle of the day driving around looking for him. I haven't seen you. Well, you haven't seen you in the gym. His goal was to build better citizens today for a brighter and better Cayman tomorrow. It takes those who came before, those who benefited from a real program, to know, and those who have value. If you don't have value, and you don't know how something was built, you know how you tell your children, one day you will understand when you have to pay the light bill. One day you'll understand when you have to pay the mortgage. And when they get older, my son just moved out. He's 20 years old, got his own place. Tell me, Dad, I understand now, Dad. Dad, you know when I get kids, Dad, I'm going to raise my kids the same way you raised me. Now he understands. Time is the greatest teacher. And there's no greater value. I know all the guys that came before, during the time with Mr. Dalmeen, or with Ms. Didi, and when Norman was there. We built such a fantastic program. I wish you had an opportunity. You could sit down and talk to some of these young men, and they could tell you, you know, and it's not that, let me say this, it's not that we did not charge a fee, you know. This is how we did it. They used to have a lot of adults come in and work out. So we would charge $25 a month. We made $800-900 a month, but everybody understood that the boxing program was number one. So if we were on the heavy bags, they had to work around us. They had to go and be on the wall bag, something else. We'd switch places, you understand? That money we used to buy gloves, to buy equipment. Well, gloves is equipment. Sometimes to travel, like when we got, or sometimes we have fights at home. Sometimes once a month or once every a couple of months, we would take the guys out. You know, 7, 8, 10, 12 of us, and have breakfast in the morning. And that's how we'd pay for it. Just camaraderie, a family. You know, that's the thing that Darrell constantly says, that it's no longer like it used to be. And not just Darrell, but and I run into the guys, it's not like it used to be, you know. It's not the family like we're used to. That's what boxing does. Like, I have friends, like, you know how many of my friends in the United States have called me former world champions, called me, Charles, you okay? We seen this thing on Facebook. Man, you all right? You mean, if you want us to come down there and speak for you, we know who you are, man. You know, I've had 4 or 5 of my friends who are former world champions and other fighters who were top contenders and my brothers in the gym. You know, because this is what boxing does. You know, you go up there now, it's
that fraternity that's built.
It's a fraternity that's built.
Yeah.
And when it's like sometimes in the evening when I'm up there, I see kids jumping on the ropes and doing all kinds of things. It has nothing to do with boxing. They're not teaching boxing there now. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know what to teach. You can't teach what you don't know. You know?
Now, you said earlier, Charles, we're going to wrap up here in a second, but you said earlier that Mr. Dalmeen would have been upset to see them trying to keep you out of the gym. He wouldn't have been upset with you for breaking the glass. Do you think you need to take any accountability at all for breaking the glass that day? I mean,
I took accountability.
Yeah.
At some point in time in this life, you got to take a stand. Okay, it might not be a popular one.
Right.
But it's always the right time to do the right thing. If I hadn't broke the glass, a lot of people say to me, Charles, I support you, but you shouldn't have broke the glass. But if I didn't break the glass, what did you support? What did you support? At some point in time, you got to take a stand. You know, things have to be done. If we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, they would be up there carrying on business as usual, using the facility for all the wrong things, running away our people and only keeping those who can afford to pay and those that they want around, those who are willing to go along, to get along. Another thing, we had an association member, a Kimanian association member, who called, who I know, he runs a personal boxing thing at the gym where he trains people up there and get paid. He called a relative of mine and said, well, they want to meet with Charles and they want to squash this because they don't want this to go, they won't get the ministry involved and blah, blah, blah. Now, you remember in the article they said that all the money they make in the facility goes to paying the coaches. Well, he tells my cousin, all the money we make and all the money that they make there, that goes back to the government. See, you can't, you know what's consistent? At the end of the day, the truth, you know. So which one, which story is which? Are you using all the money to pay the staff? Are you using all the money, are you paying the money back to the, they're paying it back to the government. It's one of the things that this association member told my cousin. You understand? They're paying it back it goes back to the government. I didn't know. I know this is not true.
Right.
I put my life on it.
Yeah. That
and I have not asked anybody yet. I put my life on it. That's not true.
Yeah, that sounds a bit strange. What a mess.
Yeah, so Sunday.
So the latest in terms of your case now, have you been charged?
Not formally.
Right, okay. So you were just arrested on suspicion of whatever all those things are. So I guess their investigation is continuing. Charles, we'll definitely keep the people updated. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are very interested in this story for so many different reasons. We thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. I promised our audience that we would definitely have an in-depth interview with you because I knew there was a backstory and I knew that it was necessary to speak on it and to certainly allow our viewers to have an opportunity to hear what your side of the story is. Of course, the Boxing Association, if they want to speak with us and put forward, we've put up their press releases and what they've had to say in writing. We'd be happy, to have them as well. And I invite them to, give some sort of explanation for what you and others have alleged is happening as part of the boxing gym and within the Boxing Association. And of course, the Minister of Sports and Youth, we invite him also to speak on this at some point with us because it has occurred to a lot of people that the ministry has been really, really silent. Even in the days following the incident, he might not have had much to say, or the ministry much to say, except that we are aware of the situation and we're working with parties involved for some sort of a resolution. Anything was better than the radio silence that we have seen. So Charles, again, thank you very, very much. We appreciate you shedding some light on this for us. And I guess we're just hoping, for all parties involved to be able to maybe sit down at the table and have a meaningful discussion around this with some resolution in place.
Well, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your service. As I always tell you that, some people complain about you, but I have always told you that I greatly You know, in fact, you know that it was I who kept pushing you to start this, because I knew you would make a difference, and you have made a difference. And
Thank you.
You have made you make a tremendous difference every day. And despite some people might throw dirt at you, throw rocks at you, I love you and I appreciate you. I appreciate your voice. For the first time in my lifetime in this country, the Caymanian people has a voice. No other media outlet is concerned about issues plaguing Caymanians. And that is a major thing. And for that, I always tell people, tune into the Mile Road. Might not always get it right, but who does? But always doing our best at Cayman Mile Road.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.